Welcome to my humble little office. My name is R. Keith Andrews. I am a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. The journey continues today on November 1st, 2022 at approximately 12:54 a.m. PST. I've been looking at things a lot over the last number of years, March 6th of 2021. I've gone through a lot of change, as have you. But, something has become painfully apparent. Okay, there is a very big difference. The heck is that? Pen. There is a very big difference between individual identity and racial identity. Now, everybody has to have an individual identity. There's one extra bonus here. Okay, you've got individual identity. I'm sure everybody is aware of what that is. Okay, that, and just to put it simply, it is how you see yourself, the way you portray yourself to the world around you. Okay, then you have racial identity. Now, I used to get really, really sidetracked with that one because I kept looking at everybody on the planet as the same race, and they are not. Okay, you have your Indo-Europeans, you have your Africans, you have your Orientals, you've got your Caucasians, you've got your Brazilians, the Aborigines down in Australia. These are all different races, but you are all of the same species, and that's where we have the biggest hiccup. Okay, that's where the biggest challenge comes in. Is that so many people take a look at their whole identity going, I've got to be an individual. And what has happened is society has built so much in the way of fear, so much in the way of being put down, of being isolated from each other, that now mankind is looking for other ways to separate itself, to further stand out amongst the masses. This cannot be effectively done the way it is going. Okay, do you remember an old term? And I think it came out of Rome, but it might have been ancient Greece. Okay, united we stand, divided we fall. If this society is going to evolve, it is time for people to start realizing that we have to start working together. We've got to start looking at the whole situation as a unified front, or from a unified front. Now, individual identity is absolutely imperative for each person. You all have your own likes, your own dislikes, your own strengths, weaknesses. You get the picture. Okay, when we're looking at racial identity, racial and cultural identity, which, by the way, are pretty similar. Okay, although they can overlap. But these identities are identifying yourself amongst a group of people. But the bigger the group, the more it melds together. Net result, we get all the way up to species identity. And this is where we have to aim towards. Now, bear in mind, you can have individual, racial, cultural, species identification, all in species identity, all in the same bin. Okay, there is no problem with it. Well, there is a problem with it. People keep looking for, and you're taught to do this, so I'm not going to hold it against you. Okay, you're taught right from the get-go to be afraid of everything happening. You're taught from the get-go, right from the time you're tiny, depending on the path of life you go down. Okay, you're taught to fear things that are different than you. Now, I can't really blame you and blame your teachers. Good afternoon, YJ. Glad you can make it. The reality of it all is that when we are taught to fear, we are taught to separate. And that one we cannot do. When we are taught to fear, we are taught to separate ourselves from everybody else. Okay. YJ, I've got a friend like you that all they want to do is leave the world alone, stay in their own little part of the world, and grow their own vegetables. And unfortunately, there are some communities where growing your own vegetables is now apparently becoming illegal, which is really cute when you think about it. Kind of a devastating thought. But, we take a look at the way the world is. And people are taught right from the get-go, fear everybody else. Okay, find a new way to identify yourself. Net result, we have this new catchphrase, I identify as. I'm neither male or female. I identify as something else. Well, there's no problem with that. You can identify with as much as you like. That's up to you. Okay. But when you start doing that, ultimately what you're going to end up with is roughly 8 billion different identities. Okay, and we all have them. Everybody's got their own identification, their own outlook on life. And you're more than welcome to have it. As a matter of fact, quite frankly, you're encouraged to have it. Now, did I ever see myself sitting in front of a video and going, here's the way I'm seeing the world? No, I pulled away from people and went, just leave me alone. Okay, net result, I became rather reclusive. But when we start looking at identities, at species identity especially, okay, you are only as strong as your weakest link. When you're looking at an individual identity, there is no way you're going to do everything necessary to survive. So you've got to turn to the people around you. Lord knows, if I have a problem with a car, I'm hooped. I've got to find somebody else to deal with it. And this is just the reality of it. But we all have to realize there are limits to what we're doing. Okay, there are limits to what you can do. But if we do not start looking at the species as a unified front, as a definitive issue. Good afternoon, Chad. Glad you could come. Until we start looking at the people around us as part of an overall picture. Okay, now here's the other identity that we have to look at, or that it would be wise to look at. Okay, mankind has developed a really neat outlook. Okay, they've developed this really neat idea that they can do whatever they choose without a catch. There's no problem. They can do whatever they please. Problem with that is mankind is part of a global community. Okay, and people have to start really identifying each other as part of that package. Now, we look at people around us. Okay, we look at the world around us and we go, okay, and people are coming out and going, my ancestors went through this. Well, bad news. Everybody's ancestors went through something bad. Okay. I mean, even the Christian faith, which plays absolute havoc with a lot of people, they had their own dark times. Okay. Now, I get a kick out of this. And I'm going to pose the same question to you that I posed to another gentleman one day, because he went off on this whole thing about his ancestors had been through heck, and he should therefore, he and other people of his racial identity, of his group, should have the lands of their forefathers back because they were taken from them again. They were just stolen from them. Now, I asked the guy, that's great, except that was war. Right? I mean, that's just the way that was. It wasn't done right. It wasn't done well. Okay, exactly. A lot of the people in today's world, YJ, for instance, the last name Cooper was because the people that were that were making, I believe a Cooper was a barrel maker, I believe. How are we doing, Tony? Glad you can make it. He was literally, Mr. Cooper, his ancestors were Coopers. When you're looking at Mr. Miller, they ran a mill. It's that simple. Okay. And guess what Mr. Carpenter what his ancestors started off doing. Okay. But I asked the gentleman, I says, okay, your land was taken from your ancestors in a very violent, very aggressive fashion. Nobody asked, they just took it. I says, with that in mind, is it okay if I go back to Wales and I just walk in and say, hey, I want the throne back? Because my ancestors were actually, they held the throne of Wales way back during the time of the War of the Roses, from what I gather. Now, needless to say, this means it was taken from me and from my ancestors illegally. It was taken under war. So with that in mind, should I be able to walk back into Wales and go, hey, I want I want control of Wales back because it belonged to my ancestors, therefore I should have it. Okay. I mean, this is just the reality behind it and something to consider. Good afternoon, Ange. Glad you made it. The reality of it is we have to realize the past cannot be changed. There's a lot of horrific things that have happened. Okay, a lot of things that mankind has done to each other, done to themselves, done to other species. Okay, and then we bring into that this other issue where we have off-worlders. Okay, we have ancient races. Now, if you think about it, if we go way back, and of course, this is where we take your thought process and twist it all out of shape. But the first species on this planet was not humans. Okay, they were not the first species to be here. Okay, much less the first sentient species. Okay, now, should mankind turn over everything it's built, okay, because to the former race that held it, should mankind turn all of that over to them because their ancestors had it? Okay, now the reality of it is we have to start looking at this and go, okay, are we going to continue down the road? Okay, down the road we're on. Are we going to continue fighting with each other and finding new and exciting ways to isolate ourselves from each other? Or are we going to start working towards a unified front? Okay, now you've got the choice. This is not just my choice. I cannot change this world on my own. Okay, no one individual can. But it is my sincere hope that people will get the message and start passing it on to other people. There are so many things I'm working on right now, so many different things that I'm looking at, that I wonder, are we going to pull our heads out of the sand soon enough? Now, when I decided I was going to pull away from people, I just walked away. I closed the doors and I did not go out. For 10 years, I've been hiding from the world for the most part. Okay. Yes, for me, it was really fun when COVID first came out. I'd already been reclusive for a decade. And then the COVID pandemic came out. And everybody goes, stay home, stay away from people, and drink warm liquids. I'm sitting there looking at it going, I don't like going out in public. I don't like going out amongst people. And I've got a 30-cup urn for coffee at home. I'm good. Okay. And I'm still seeing, and things got really dicey. But now we have to look at it and go, we've got a new world in front of us. Now, I will warn you of something very important. Right now, we've got a new world in front of us. By the time we get off this live feed, by the end of the next hour to hour and a half here, but I've got about an hour, just over an hour, just under an hour and a half left that I've got available. Okay. By the time we get off this live feed, we are going to be living in a brand new world, totally evolved from what it was. Okay. So from that end, okay, we have to start looking and passing on the word. And this is where your help comes in real conveniently, real handy, to let people know that yes, everybody has their differences. Everybody sees themselves in a different way. Okay. and everybody identifies with themselves in a certain fashion. Some people identify themselves as an artist. Okay. Last thing I'm going to call myself is an artist. Now, I've seen some people that draw worse than I do. Okay. I've seen shows that end up on TV that I look at it going, why would you put that on TV? Except for the fact that people watch it. Okay. Now, this does not make it great art, in my opinion, but my opinion doesn't really matter. Okay, in all fairness. The reality of it is we have to look at the world and go, okay, where do we go from here and how do we start? Okay, well, how you start is the easy part. And that is you got to take a look in the mirror and you got to look at yourself and go, okay, who am I as an individual? Am I am I participating in society, as in, am I doing what is necessary so that I am not a burden on society? Okay. Now, there's all kinds of ways you can do that. But the trick to getting really started is to get the energy flowing in your own body in the right fashion. Okay. Now, from that standpoint, you have to look at the issue and go, okay, where am I going from here? And you go and take a look at the energy in your house. If you've got a lot of clutter around you, I will tell you, and you don't have to believe this one, test it for yourself. If your house is cluttered, okay, the energy is going to flow slower. You're going to feel more withdrawn, more lethargic, more drained, slower thinking. Clear out the clutter, and you'll find all of the above pick up pace. You're able to think a whole lot more effectively. Well, that ultimately that's not a bad assessment of it there, YJ. The other way of putting that is, yes, people desire to stand out. Absolutely they do. The problem I'm finding consistently is most of the people I talk to desire the world to change, but individually they are not on the whole willing to change. Okay. When I desired to make a change to my life, I have grown up understanding I've got to put the effort into it. The best tools in the world are not going to help if you don't pick them up. Okay, and this is just the reality behind it. Okay, and now you're going like, why put your coffee over there when it was over there? Well, it's because by putting my coffee over on my left side, it forces me, or more to the point, encourages me to use my left hand to learn to drink coffee again. It's something I've been striving to get back under control properly since I had my stroke. Reality is, in a sense, it is black and white. The effort you put into something. Karmic law holds very true here. Energy out, energy in. Meaning, whatever you put your effort into, this is what you're stacking the deck in favor of getting. Doesn't guarantee you'll get it. It really doesn't. Hey, Jeffrey, how we doing? Actually, day's not going bad. A little tired on occasion, but hey, at least it's working. The neat part, and this is just a bit of sidetrack. Okay, I'm working on the Yldrbac Chronicles on Return to Paradise. Made a major breakthrough at the beginning of the book that has put me back finally on a solid track. I'm still aiming for the end of the year to have the book and to have the third volume, to have it in print. Okay, I don't know if I'm going to manage it. I never have known. I'm aiming for the end of the year. Worst case scenario, I'm looking to be in the beginning of spring, but I'm still targeting the end of the year. I worked it out. I've got to get, based on an average work week. Okay. Oh, well, that one I did not know. Of course, I didn't look up on it, so thanks so much for that, Edge. Jeffrey, happy birthday to you. you know, when I got working on, and the reality is I finally found a way to pull it into motion based on an 8-hour workday, an average 22 hours or 22 days of the month, which is your average work month. I've got to put 3.5 pages of new writing down every day in order to make my deadline. Okay, plus, of course, the editing that has to go with it. But we're working on that as we go. But the reality of society itself, right now, society is working at so many different ways of going, I'm different than you are. I stand out above you. Well, here's a news flash for you. Everybody talks about minorities. Globally speaking, I'm a minority. You want to make it even smaller minority? Okay. Number one, I'm Caucasian. Number two, I'm classified as psychic. I bill myself as a spiritual guide, but the better term I like is a sensitive, meaning I pick up energies that other people tend to miss. Okay, but or they overlook. I am also one of the very, very few that have walked, and I'm sure there's others, but I've walked out of a morgue. Now you want a minority. I'm sitting right there. Do I see myself as deserving of anything special than other people? Not at all. Good afternoon, Terry. Glad you made it. The reality of it is, I'm no better than you are. I'm no better than anybody else. But then again, nobody else is better than I am as an individual. People have better skills. Okay, they absolutely do. But when we're looking at this, when we're looking at society, you've got to start going, okay, I am unique. I am different than the next person. But this idea of I'm better because my skin color is different, because I call myself a different gender, right? I don't identify as this. Well, unfortunately, you can identify as what you choose. When we're talking about identifying about personal identity, identify with what you play with what you choose, but understand the rest of the world has to work on a much more generalized perspective. Okay, now right now, anatomically speaking, you have two genders, period. Okay, now this means we have in every restaurant, every public venue, you have a male and a female restroom, and you have one that everybody else can use, that everybody can use. Okay, but what's happening now is people are splitting the identities apart further and further. Way back in when you go back into the 20s, I think it was the 20s, it might have been after that as well. But anyway, back in the 20s, in our history, your skin color determined whether you were able to go into certain buildings. Nobody agreed with it then. Okay, and it eventually changed, and people came to understand that your skin color did not make you a lesser individual as far as business goes. Okay, you still had to buy food, etc., etc. Whoa, just reading here. Jeffrey's just asking, I think there's something unique about all of us in this chat, and chats like this one. It's what brings us together to discuss what the majority would consider weird or crazy. Absolutely. My little brother told me one day, he goes, Keith, I don't think you're nuts, but the way you talk half the time makes it sound like you're nuts. Now, I've been to 3 different professional psychiatrists, all of which have said that I am perfectly fine. Boy, are they wrong. But they all have said I'm perfectly fine. And, we came to understand years ago, okay, we go back centuries. It was originally believed if you killed your firstborn son, you could change the weather. That didn't work out so well. They finally got over it. Coming to the more recent, come a little further forward, and if you know nature, if you can heal people using herbs and what have you, okay, this makes you evil, and the only way we can eradicate that is to burn them at the stake, hang them, put them out in the wilderness and see if they survive, this sort of thing. Turned out that wasn't a great idea. Okay, mankind evolved and everybody's still going, women are second class. They're female, therefore they don't deserve as much pay as a guy doing the same job. Eventually, they came to the understanding this was wrong. Now, we do have some dinosaurs in politics right now that are going back into the dark ages. I'm just waiting for them to turn around and go, oh, books are illegal. Not just this book, that book, but every one of them are illegal. Okay, years ago, it was believed that books contained all the evil knowledge, so they were going to burn them. Net result, what were called firemen back then, lit all the books on fire, as many as they could get a hold of. Okay, eventually they figured this was a bad idea. Okay, now the firemen today, people look to them when your house goes up in flames. You look to the firemen to come and help you, not to burn your house down because you had books in it. Okay, now and then of course we come up with the gay community, and I'll tell you, inside the gay community, who you sleep with, who really cares? If it is consensual, who really cares? Okay, I certainly don't care who you're crawling into bed with. Okay, I do have my own guidelines, as in, if either one of those two people are attached to somebody else, don't crawl into bed with them. Okay, that's just my personal outlook. Some people don't share that outlook. It's amazing how many relationships fall apart because of that difference. Okay, eventually people figured out that didn't work all that well. Okay, now, the important factor that we have to look at now is these segregations that people are coming up with. I don't identify as this. Well, guess what? You probably don't. But you do have to live in a society where the majority of people do identify from an anatomical standpoint. You're either male or female. Yes, there's all sorts of people that look differently, that have different strengths. Okay, different strengths, different weaknesses. There was a thing I grew up with. Okay, and pardon the way it's phrased, if you don't believe in God, that's your issue. I personally do. Okay, but the way it was put to me was, there but for the grace of God go I. Okay, and this is the dangerous part, Ange. Like, Ange is just saying, we are the thinkers of the future. We are the special ones. Absolutely correct. This is absolutely the reality of it. The message we leave the people coming up behind us is the one that is going to determine what the future holds. What you have to ask is, are you propagating, like most of the people in this chat room, I'm really happy to see most of you, from what I've gathered, look at what's going on, going, we've got to do better. Okay. Unfortunately, the massive majority of people out there don't see it that way. Okay, the massive majority of people out there look at the world the way it is, and they go, I desire to be on top. Or more to the point, they go, I want to be on top, which in and of itself is a problem. Because the moment you utter the term, I want, you're promoting the energy of a lack of. Net result, the reality, which is why so many people that want things don't actually get them. I tried staying out of mainstream society. And you'll notice I said tried, because it didn't work well. Here I find myself years later having been reclusive for over a decade. Right. Oh, heavens, yeah. The funny thing here, YJ, before the social media came out, before social media came out, I used to believe, like many of you did, that the government, the major media moguls, the major industries were what were causing the chaos. But then social media came out. And, it used to be people certainly had problems. They certainly had just as many. Lord knows I've been dealing with people's problems since I was 10. Okay. The problems are still the same. The only difference now is what we've got is a world that people are no longer looking at what are they entitled to. They're looking at what am I entitled to? What am I getting out of this? Instead of how can I work with others to make this a better world? How can I make this easier for everybody, for other people as well? Okay. People have gone from this idea of interacting and communicating with each other to isolating themselves, and then while isolated, while completely disconnected, complaining that other people are doing better. I cannot tell you how many people will sit on that I've talked to that will sit on their tail feathers at work, do absolutely nothing, and then wonder why they didn't get promoted. They were there longer. They sat on their tail feathers longer than the guy next to them. Why didn't they get the promotion? Well, they didn't get the promotion because they didn't do anything. This is just an ongoing situation here. Honestly, Jeffrey, you're absolutely right. This is why I say technology itself is not a bad thing. But where it comes to identity, too many people now are looking at the social media going, I make a statement, and I see it all the time. People make statements that are intended to bring a concern that a lot of people are thinking about to light, and they get jumped on for saying anything. And then people wonder why they don't come out of the closet. You take a look at the gay society. You would not believe the number of people that I have talked to that that are in the gay and lesbian society well, I'll call it a little group. I have no idea of the numbers. I could probably care less of the numbers. But even amongst them, I've literally heard people say, members of this society, I've literally personally heard them turn around and go, well, you can't be gay because you've got kids. Bad news. Who you prefer to sleep with and who can produce a child with you are two very different things. In the UFO society, so many people I talk to, they go, I haven't said anything about my experience because the people around me, even in the UFO community, are going to turn around and say, I'm nuts. Because we sit here and we go, I believe for myself that this is the way it is. We have to start looking at this and going, if you're going to claim that you believe something, the number of people I've talked to that have said, I deal with UFOs with alien races on a regular basis, that do not know the first thing about them is absolutely amazing. It's mind-boggling to me. It's like telling somebody, if I were to tell you, I speak fluent French or I speak fluent Spanish. Well, I'll tell you right now, I can say a couple of things quite nicely, as in, yo ne sais pas parler français, or yo no hablo español. That's my French and Spanish. And I get the point across to the people that understand it. But the reality of it is, if you're going to claim you're capable of something, be honest about it. This is why when people ask me questions, if I don't have an answer, I'll turn around and go, don't know. Many times you end up, when you're looking at identifying who you are, I had to figure out, I do not, and I make no bones about it, I do not get along in public well. If I'm working, I can function quite nicely. But just on my own, just while I'm out and about, I do not get along well in crowds. They make me edgy. A lot of that can be chalked up to the fact that I have to be fully empathic. I can feel what's going on. But this is where other people come in handy. Like if I'm going someplace, I know my sense of direction gets turned around really quickly. So I turn to somebody else to make sure I stay where I'm heading for. You have to find a way to identify yourself. Now, I look at me and go, okay, this is the way I am. I'm not dressed to the nines by any functional stretch. One day I may eventually. I keep thinking about it, and then I go, you know, I need $50 to buy. I need $150 to buy a jacket to go out to a restaurant that I don't care whether they like what I'm wearing, and I'm not going out in public. So, I keep talking about upgrading my wardrobe, to identify myself as a little bit better off. And I came to the conclusion I do desire the best of the best. This is why I picked my partner. Okay, and in all fairness, that's a long story, but my other half is the one I consider the best of the best. Now, does that mean that she is absolutely perfect? No. But does it mean she is absolutely perfect for me? No. But she is the best I've come across. And since I refuse to look for anybody else, like I told her, she does have a deadline in getting across the border. Okay. If she comes across the border and either one of us is dead, I'm not marrying her. It's just that simple. But that's all there is to it. I have identified myself as I like my peace and quiet. I like my ability to just hide from the world and drink coffee as much as I choose. I've even got a nutritionist backing me on it. But at the same time, I have to acknowledge the fact I'm part of the community of this particular apartment block I live in. I'm part of the community of the neighborhood I live in. I have to be Caucasian through no fault of my own. Well, technically it is, but that's another issue. Okay, that has more to do with evolutionary determination. I chose this path. In my belief structure, I picked the life pattern I was coming into and the corporeal form. Now, with this in mind, just because I'm a member of various different communities, not the least of which is the community of Canada, the community of North America, and of the Western world, and the community of this planet, this does not mean I'm entitled to any more respect, any more understanding than the next person. Okay. The reality of the whole 9 yards. Let's see, what do we got? I'm just reading back on a couple of the posts that have been made here. And that's just it. YJ, this whole thing, the whole digital world can collapse. It really can. And this is what people don't get when they start talking about alien invasions. Let's take all our attention and look up there because there's a common threat. Brilliant idea. But all those guys have to do is fire off one EMP pulse, one subquantum EMP pulse that destroys every electronic component in existence. And you guys are all back in the Stone Age. And that's just the push of one button. That's it. Now, do you really think you're going to have any combative ability against that? Okay. That said, we have the other problem. That same solar flare, that same EMP pulse, wipes out the last 50 years of evolution. Not of the way mankind evolved, but most of our data now is on servers. You shut down the computer system, most of our information you can't find anymore, not in hard copy. And of course, the geniuses in power positions right now are making a lot of the books, they're banning a lot of the books that have social messages. You got to remember, these books are things that happened. Banning the books does not change what history did. Never will change it. Okay. See, the funny part is, years ago, 2003, we had a massive fire in Kelowna here. Okay, at the time, we had approximately 100,000 people living in the area. When the fire hit, a third of the city was evacuated. Now, what we found out at that point was the people that were really well off, had a lot of money, saw themselves as being so much better, The fire didn't care. They took out everybody's homes. 247, if I recall the numbers correctly. And they didn't care who had paid their mortgage or not. But the people coming out that thought they had all this stuff, they had all this material stuff, were completely lost on how to deal with the sudden cataclysm. Okay, the people that were living on the edge of poverty, the ones that were homeless, knew exactly how to survive. And my first comment when I started seeing this happen was, really makes you wonder who's rich. Okay, we are all on this same planet. And you've got to understand that, yes, you can identify yourself as an individual however you please. But you have to realize you're part of a much bigger thing, of a much bigger issue. Okay. Now, years ago, and I'm gonna if I can find it. I hope it's where it should be. In here, if I did it right. Well, is that what I wanted? I'm just looking for something I wrote years and years and years ago. Here we are. Now, this is just something I wrote. I don't know how long ago at this point, but probably a decade. So I'm going to read this to you. Okay. And this one, like I said, I wrote this a decade ago. I got thinking about the way mankind is. Okay. So I'd like you to pay attention to this quite seriously. It's called humanity's arrogance. 'Tis said they're insignificant. 'Tis said they're but a pest. 'Tis said that when they're dead and gone, the human race will rest. But what about the good they do? And what about their help? And what about the beasts they feed to feed the humans well? 'Tis said Ma Nature made the chain. 'Tis said that she'll repair it. 'Tis said the balance is her claim. So why should humans share it? Do you recall that humans live within Ma Nature's realm? And when she gets annoyed enough, she dons her battle helm? The human race will never fall. The human race is great. The human race will make it stand, for none can dominate. Then think about this minor point. If balance is her claim, just what will happen to the race if they should break the chain? They'll keep on building cities. They will keep on reaching out. They will claim the name of master race. Of that there is no doubt. Then guard the pride of humans well, for pride precedes a fall. And when Ma Nature's had enough, she'll surely end it all. Now, we're running through this. This was initially thought about a thought that came up regarding insects, animals, this sort of thing, clear cutting. But a new thing has evolved since then. And this is this dominant press about alien invasion. Okay, humans are not the top of the totem pole, and this is what people have to realize. Okay. You know, the reality of the whole 9 yards, okay, is we have to realize that people are all in the same boat. We have to work together. You know, I see we're talking about the newer vehicles that are coming up. And I agree. Some of them are great, and the bells and whistles are wonderful things. But here's the problem. Okay, when you're dealing with electric cars, here's the thing that people don't seem to be looking at. Maybe I'm overlooking something. But the demand for hydroelectric, for electricity, whether it's hydro, whether it is wind powered, solar powered, doesn't matter. The power lines right now are having trouble keeping a hold of them. Okay, you make everything electric, and you're bottlenecking yourself. Remember that thing about don't put all your eggs in one basket? Okay, this is why when you're looking at your own identity, yes, find ways to make yourself feel better about yourself without deliberately hurting other people, if you please. Okay, by doing that, we can actually make things work quite nicely. But it really is time to understand that, yes, you can have a personal identity. You can have an individual identity. It's absolutely necessary because each and every one of you is a special individual. Every one of you has something unique about you. Okay, but this does not make you better than the next person. Okay. That's funny. Hey, YJ, they've got a new product out called EMP, called EMP Shield. Okay, and what YJ is saying is it's supposed to keep it okay in an EMP of 10 class or better, of a 10 class flare. That's fantastic. Problem is they don't understand the subquantum impact of the EMP pulse or of the solar flare. Okay, the modern scientists haven't got it. Now, can I explain in scientific terms? Not a prayer. The reality of it is, we're talking about, everybody talks about an oil shortage. Okay, that's why they're pushing the electric cars. Bad news. Okay, and don't take my word for this one. Okay, because I am not a geologist. I am not a what do they call it? I'm not I don't know what it's called. I'm not a tectonic engineer. I can tell you this, though. Okay, there is an oil patch that, as far as I understand it, there is an oil patch that stretches under Lake Superior that is accessible from both Canada and the U.S., bigger than the Saudi Arabian oil flats. Now, we don't have an oil shortage. I know they're saying we do. People talk about this land shortage. Fly over the state sometime. Fly over Canada sometime. You may find a little bit of open air there, of open land. It's not a question of a land shortage. The so-called food shortage. Okay, it's not a food shortage. The amount of food that gets thrown out is insane. Okay. We all have different ways of looking at the world, and I'm not saying mine is the best way. Mine just causes me the least stress. And of course, some people have pointed out I may be going through less stress because of the fact I don't go around people. Okay. Now, for those of you that are listening in from the UFO community, if the travel barriers come down regarding the vaccine, because I never got vaccinated and I refuse to. Okay, I didn't get vaccinated. Heck, I haven't been vaccinated for the flu since the flu vaccines came out. But given that those barriers come down, and I get an invite to come down to one of the UFO conferences, yes, I will come down. I don't travel well, so you can bet your bottom dollar I'll have somebody with me that can make sure I get where I've got to get to. Do I work fine in public when I'm working? Certainly. But am I about to go out and just wander around in a mall to talk to people? Not a prayer anymore. That's a neat little part. I mean, we have all of these things that technology is bringing about, but most of it, most of the things that are coming about, people are not looking at the long range. Now, the North American Indians, okay, Native North Americans, I don't care what you call yourselves, okay. In my opinion, if you're born on a given continent, you're native. If you're born in a given city, you're native to that area. But that culture, before the Europeans got to North America, had a brilliant outlook. They wouldn't cut a tree down without looking 7 generations down the road, as in 140 years down the road. What is moving and removing that tree going to do? They would take this into consideration. Okay, in today's world, people clear cut, right, and then end up with mudslides and unstable ground. Can't imagine why. Take the superstructure out that's holding things in place, and then soak it and see what happens. I'd recommend against exercising that. It's been done already. Didn't work out all that well. Okay, this idea of, gee, let's get into the ancient kind of trees and cut them all down. Let's not worry about what might be growing inside them, such as the viri, the viruses and the diseases that are trapped in dormant state because they got stuck in the crust and buried, because they got stuck in the ice and can't do anything. But let's clear all that out and see how well that works. Thus far, not working well. But we are taught right from the get-go, and we can go back centuries on this. The churches came out and said, because I am a pastor, because I'm a priest, I am better than you are. And I will tell you, that doesn't add up for me. I've dealt with priests that are wonderful people, absolutely brilliant people, great humanitarians. And I've talked to some that are dumber than a fence post. I've talked to alcoholics. I used to be one, but I've talked to alcoholics that will blame everybody for their drinking. I've talked to alcoholics that will turn around and go, I've got a drinking problem, or more to the point, I don't have a problem drinking. It's a non-drinking problem I have. Really nice people. Some people in every walk of life. You'll find good people, you'll find bad ones. Some humans are decent. Most humans, I'm willing to go so far as to say a good 90, 95% of people, on the whole, are decent people. Unfortunately, it's the noisy ones, the real negative ones, that seem to get most of the recognition. As a matter of fact, in all fairness, the real nasty ones aren't the real problem, oddly enough. Somebody goes out and robs a bank. One person, he goes out, robs a grocery store. The three people in that grocery store know that he robbed them. Absolutely. Now, it used to be one person would go rob a grocery store, they rob a convenience store. The three people in the store knew about it. The cops would come along. The people would tell the cops about it. And the cops would turn around and go find the guy. And that was all the recognition that chap got. In today's world, somebody robs the grocery store, and everybody and their dog has something to say about it. Either, yay, way to go, way to stick it to the man. Let's forget about the fact that it was an individual whose store got robbed, and it spreads like wildfire across the planet. The more heinous the crime, the bigger the spread. It's not just the criminals. It's the people that are reporting it and making it into a big sensationalist thing. That's where a lot of your problem is coming in. Oh, there absolutely is. Jeffrey. Now, the biggest issue for me, as far as flat Earth goes, I know a lot of people that think it's flat. I ignore science and just go with the fact that I've been off planet. And you decide whether or not that makes me completely off my nut or not. But there are a lot of things that are not being told. But let me ask you this. People say, why doesn't the government come out and say, we want the governments to come out and say, yes, aliens are here. We want proof. We want them to admit they've got proof that aliens are here. But think of the ramifications. You identify yourself as in, I'm human, that's an alien. Humans are afraid of each other based on skin color and size. Picture what happens when you I'm going to show you. This is one of the books I read, that I wrote. But it'll give you an idea. Now this guy in the middle here. That's a standard human, 5'8". Now this is a picture of an actual Strazazian. Now look at the difference in the height of him compared to the height of a standard human. Is this going to make you a little edgy if this guy's walking down the street carrying a mace that size? Take a look at the size of that mace. Now this is a picture of an actual mace these guys carry. Look at it compared to the human's chest. Now, is this going to make you a little edgy or what? And of course, we have to realize that when we're talking about this, okay, mankind's entire belief structure, is actually set up on the concept that we are the only people here. It's erroneous, but that's what they've set up. You know, the funny thing is, most of the races out there are literally, they believe the same thing. They were made in their God's image. And a lot of them have the same problem, but they have evolved further than man. In answer to the question that you just popped up there, Jeffrey. Okay, in simplest terms, if you go to rkeithandrews.com, you can see all the books I've written, complete with their costs in hand. Unfortunately, the cost of mailing is mind-bogglingly high in some cases. But the book itself, if I'm just handing it to somebody, that particular book, The End of an Epoch, by the way, that is the second in the series. This one is the first in the series. They're already in print. This is The Birth of the Wolf Pack. Okay. But those I sell at $40 Canadian plus shipping. If you go to rkeithandrews.com, it'll tell you the books that are there and their price, including shipping. I do work with PayPal. In Canada, I work with email transfer as well, with e-transfer. But the rest of the world, I work with PayPal through Inner Voice Enterprises at yahoo.ca. That's the email address I work with that PayPal uses. Okay. Ultimately, he's not actually. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, YJ, but was Neil Adams, was that not the author of what the heck was it called? Oh, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I'm pretty certain that was his name. And if you can type that in, let me know. That'd be great. I wish, YJ. Unfortunately, I still have to deal with the Postal Service. And it's absolutely mind-boggling that way. But I am currently in the process of getting an Amazon store put up that's going to be handling it as well. Okay. The neat part about the way you look at the world, how you look at it is up to you. But there are certain things you have to realize. There's a saying that goes, what you don't know and what you don't see can't hurt you. As a matter of fact, I got told that quite flatly one day. I looked at the person, I said, really? How many people have you ever heard of that got hit by lightning or hit from behind by a car? They didn't see the thing coming, and I'll tell you, it really screwed up their day. Okay. Oh, okay. Thank you, YJ. And I remembered the artist Chris Claremont. Of course, I quit collecting comic books years ago. Okay. My brother, on the other hand, not so much. But no, the reality is, when we take a look at this, okay, and you'll love this. When I wrote the Yldrbac Chronicles, when you get to the backstory, Earth does have an internal, something I found out when I was researching Earth itself. It does have an internal set of continents, an entire civilization underground that mankind knows virtually nothing about because they've kept to themselves. And amazingly enough, humans are pretty edgy about going into dark places where they can't see. Understandable in my eyes. I have a problem going outside when I can't see. Actually, I don't have a problem going outside at all. I just don't go. Hence, no problem. Thank you so much, YJ. The whole thing that I'm looking at here okay, is that when we take a look at the way the world is, identify yourself as you see fit. As you see fit. I don't think that works. But identify yourself as you see fit. But understand, you still have to operate inside a physical community that everybody is not going to see you as the same in the same way you see yourself. I remember years ago I had a client and he came to me and he goes, he says, I'm really worried. I think the government's tracking me, you know. And I sat there and he says, what am I going to do? I'm absolutely, it's happening. Absolutely certain it's happening. And I sat there and I said, well, I got some good news for you and some bad news. And this applies to 99% of people out there. Okay. I said, yeah, you're being tracked by your government. Absolutely. They are watching what's going through your bank. They're watching what questions you're looking up online. They're watching what books you rent from the library. They're watching the social circles to see who you're interacting with. Okay, and then we have the added bonus that the off-worlders are in orbit watching all of that as well. And he says, well, I knew it. I says, yeah, no doubt. But there's another piece, and this is why I don't know which is which. I says, you're not that important. If you're not doing anything to create a problem for the people in power, okay, and I mean a real problem, like you'll notice, I will tell people wholeheartedly, the system works. Okay, the people in the lead positions are not doing necessarily the best job, but the way to change that is not by overthrowing a government. It is not by creating by creating chaos or by blowing up buildings or by wiping out old artwork. It just doesn't work that way. You desire to make change, start with yourself. Are you treating people the way you personally desire to be treated? Okay, if the answer is no, if you're talking to people in a way you would not be appreciative of, don't talk to them that way. Okay, now this is why I tell people I am not what we would call social, politically correct. Okay, I don't tend to put my foot in my mouth. I tend to put my foot in my mouth every time I open it. It's never a question of am I going to put my foot in my mouth? It's a question of how am I going to get the other one in there beside it? When we start looking back at the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, there were a lot of people that really took to that. And the thing I found amazing about that is all these scientists are trying to figure out what the fastest thing is. If you read the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, your studying is over. He put it very simply. Belly button lint is the fastest thing in existence. Now you don't have to go to university. You don't have to go to college. Just read the book. You got it. And if you look at what's being pushed out of the schools right now, you're pretty much in the same boat. But identify yourself as you see fit. Okay. But remember, much as you got free will, you can do as you please. You can do whatever you choose. You've got the free will to do it. So does everything else in existence. Okay, but you have to operate within your own limitations. Okay. Like I told my other half, when she gets up here, now I'm not controlling, but I have put my foot down on one thing. There is no way that I am ever going to let my other half drive in downtown traffic, much less out in the country. But there's no way I will let her drive in downtown traffic. Now, I'm not a control freak by any stretch. Okay, but I told her on that one I will stand on it. But there is a reason for it. You see, there's a lot of people I figure shouldn't have licenses. In my other half's case, it's pretty cut and dried. She's absolutely blind. So maybe I'm a little bit picky, maybe I'm a little fussy, but I figure her driving in downtown traffic is a bad idea. But I told one person that was about 20 years older than I am that I found a partner I was really happy with the one glitch that she happened to be blind. And the guy looks at me and goes, why would you bother setting yourself up with somebody like that? You're just asking to be a caretaker for the rest of your life. And I just looked at him and I says, you've never met a blind person, have you? Okay. Who you feel drawn to, who you desire to spend your life with, that's up to you. Doesn't matter the gender, the age, any distinction. Who you choose to be with, that's up to you. But you still have to take into consideration the societal laws that you're living in, because you must follow the laws of the land in which you are. Okay, a rather brutal example of that is if you go out in nature, okay, and you don't know your way around the bush, nature doesn't care. It's still going to treat you the same way. Okay, so identify yourself as you will, but realize you are not the only person that is there. Okay, you're not the only individual out there that you've got to consider. Okay, when you're in public, talking the way you do, like I talk this way anyway. Okay, doesn't matter where I am. Okay, I talk the way I do because this is who I am. And you'll find if you ever actually sit down with me and for coffee, you'll find the same thing. Okay, my son, my youngest son, gave me a shirt for Christmas or for Father's Day this year. It says, my people skills are fine. It's my toleration and my tolerance of idiots that needs work. Okay. And I make no bones about it. Okay, no bones at all about it. But one of the things that I have done with the Yldrbac Chronicles, a lot of the things I talk about here, about world unity, about communication, okay, about your soulmates, soulmates, reincarnation, star families, soul families, all of this. Okay, I'm covering these odds and ends in it, as well as things like how magic actually works. Okay, and one of the things with humans, and you've all got this capacity, it's just most of you have been taught you don't. Okay, you come into this world having this wonderful outlook on life. Oh, everything's new, everything's exciting, right? And your imagination goes absolutely wild with what you can see. And then the adults that are here start going, oh, that's a wonderful imagination, Munchkin. Now it's time to grow up. It's time to get on with real life. Okay, so people forget that these magical things that happen are real. Life itself is a magical experience. Okay, and all magic is, in essence, is a way of doing things. The spirituality side of things is a way of explaining the inexplicable until science can come along and figure it out. Okay, so we have to take a look at the way the world is and go, okay, are we going to keep living in fear, or are we going to start communicating with each other and start building things? Okay, now what I have discovered is that we have a choice as individuals. I was avoiding getting involved in talking about religion and what have you. I've been avoiding it for a long time. I got told the other day, and we'll just leave it as I got told, that it was time I started dealing with it, because what's happening with many of the spiritual belief structures, and I'm not talking about just recognized religions. Okay, you recognize your religions, your secondary religions, your pagan religions, your belief structures from all walks. They've all got part of the truth. You want the real answer? Get along. It's that simple. Also that complicated, by the way. But when you're being told that God designed everything except evil, you're being misled. It's that simple. It's an impasse that I cannot get past, and I cannot see the logic in getting past. Okay. It was once said, I think it was Einstein, but it might have been somebody else, that said, when you push technology to its ultimate level, there is little difference between it and magic. And when we're looking at identifying who you are, your belief structure is at the atom of that, at the center of that belief. Okay, what is at the center of your identity? What you see yourself as. Now, do I see myself as better than you? No, not at all. Different, way more than you might think, but that's okay. I don't mind it. Okay, I was told as you get older, your eyesight will buckle. Okay, it will collapse because you're getting older. Your hearing will go down because you're getting older. But the same people that tell you that every cell in your body will replace itself every 7 years. Therefore, however old you get, those other things don't work. They are not mutually compatible. Okay, now I'm living proof. It used to be back in 07 when I held my glasses right there. I could not physically see them. Okay, now I've got 20/20 eyesight for reading. Okay, I still hear at a subsonic level. Okay, so I mean, from my standpoint, it's like, okay, apparently I'm outside the norm, but this does not mean you can't do the same thing. Okay, still trying to figure out what I know what it is. Because my eyes don't track as fast as I would like, that's where my problem comes to reading on the computer. Because you remember, the computer is constantly refreshing itself, meaning it flashes. Okay, and that's where I lose track of it. In all fairness, YJ, the identity conundrum that we've got right now is going to get a lot worse before it gets better in all likelihood. Now, I'm hoping to be able to be part of the solution to that in helping people understand that whether you identify as one thing or another, as long as you accept the fact that genetically you're still classified as one of two genders. Okay, if we can get people to accept that, if we can get people to accept the fact that so you've got a different color skin, you may be a different race because of your heritage, but you're still the same species and you're still entitled to the same rights. If we can get people to do that, and that's done on a one-to-one basis, that's you taking that philosophy and going, no, that makes more sense than the other. Like, nobody's given me a rational reason why women should not get paid the same amount that men do for doing the exact same job. Okay, nobody's given me a rational explanation as to why a police uniform is a police uniform unless you're of a different religion. Okay, if you take that to where it can logically go, all of a sudden you've got the police being able to go back and do some police. Now, do understand, I'm a firm believer that the police force, that the first responders, the military, are all necessary and well configured organizations. But if you take it to the ultimate level, okay, now I've heard people go, I don't have to wear a helmet because it's against my religion. Or I'm allowed to carry a knife onto the plane because it's my religious right. A knife is a knife is a knife. And rest assured, a knife will not care who you voted for. It will not care whether or not you're male or female or what color your skin is. It cuts just as deeply. Okay, bombs don't care who you have been sleeping with. Okay, they just don't. And when people can start to realize that these differentiators are not about their heritage or not about their identity, but about the reality of it. If you take three people, okay, we'll take a liberal, a conservative, a liberal. We'll take a liberal out of Canada. We'll pull a Republican out of the States, and we'll take a hillbilly. We'll take an outdoorsman out of southern Australia, and we'll take all three of you, have you all parachute without a parachute. It ain't going to matter. You're all going to hit the ground. You're all going to bounce, and nobody's going to be in any good shape. Okay, we have to realize that whatever your heritage, whoever you identify as, whether you think you're male, female, transgender, reassign, whatever. There's something like 52 different genders or more. I saw one the other day. The modern doctors have now identified 5 distinctive genders in the human race. But physically, there's only 2. Okay. And that's the thing we have to realize. Because whether you're male or female, if a fire breaks out in your house, the fire ain't going to stop and check your gender. Okay. The fire, a flood doesn't check to see who you voted for before it fills your house. This is what we have to realize. And if we don't stop this segregation of identity and start looking at this as we're all in the same boat, we're all going to die at some point, and none of us are going to be taking our material stuff with us. This is just not going to happen. If this does not stop, then you're looking at a really neat situation. Okay, you're looking at several countries going into civil war. Okay, and rest assured, for those that think war is good for the economy, tell that to the neighborhood where somebody's convenience store got blown up, or where a church got decimated. Okay, or how about just look at the passenger plane, where it went down and 200 people got killed. Did that actually help anybody? Okay, these are not ways of benefiting. And Cliff, in all fairness, I agree with you there. Okay, when somebody is born hermaphroditic, where they have both sets of genitalia, okay, that is where the parent really does have to look at the child. It is wise to look at the child and go, we're going to pick one, or we're going to pick one over the other and go, that's what we're doing. The child is in no shape to make that decision. Now, down the road, they may find that the parent chose a physical form that they don't quite identify as. Okay. And therefore, a complete physical modification is in order to put things back to right. Now, that is one area where you have to look at. Now, in answer to the people that are going to ask that, what's the difference if I don't want to be male anymore? That's no problem. You don't want to be male. You want to go through the medical procedure and get completely changed over. Then when you reach that point, at that point, you are now physically female. Okay, I have never heard of anybody asking to have both sets installed. Okay, but if you're one of these people that feels that you're in the wrong body, absolutely get the genetic operation done and get the physical operation done. Get transferred over and live your life and call yourself female or whatever gender you become. But it's imperative we stop looking at it and going, because I don't feel that way, you should treat me differently. I don't know how every individual feels. It's not 100% accurate, but it's close. Okay, but I will tell you that if you're not happy with it, and let's not go the route of, but it's too expensive. It probably is. But until you can do that, you're still whatever gender you were. Whether you identify it or not, medically speaking, you're still the same. Okay. Now, this is unfortunate, and it does have to do with your identity. Absolutely. Well, Tony, the age of Aquarius is the age of awareness. It is when the intellect is going to drive a lot of society. Problem is that if mankind does not pay attention to the added information, to the added drive that brings in, the added intellectual capacity that brings in, you can have an increased intellect and still have the wisdom of a shoebox. Okay. Things are going to change. There's no question there. And people are going to learn to accept things a little better. But thank you for making that little suggestion there, because I really should take a look at that. I know what's coming myself, or at least I know what I believe is coming. But what I'm going to do, I've just made a note for myself to look into what the theory is, what other people are saying the theory is behind the age of Aquarius as it comes up. And within the next couple of weeks, I will deal with that head on. I will try and give people a heads up. Getting organized for me gets a little tricky on occasion. Now, due to the fact I have to get ready for work, okay, I'm just simply going to have to bring this to a close. But I am really, that was an excellent note to bring in there, though, Tony. Thank you very much. Because of that, I'm going to have to bring things to a close here. And I will bid you all a very good day. Thanks so much for joining me. And for pity's sakes, until we meet again, be absolutely, I will definitely have to deal with that, Tony. Yes, a lot of people are absolutely talking about transcending. And there's a whole lot of misunderstanding around that from what I've seen. But I will be back. Until then, take care of yourselves and each other. And for pity's sakes, stay positive.